Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the fifth edition of AIMA Aspires Womenspeak session, a very special initiative where we invite women leaders and achievers from various fields to come and share their thoughts about their areas of work or their life experiences. So today it's our pleasure to have with us Ms. Rhea Mazumdar Singhal, who is the founder and CEO of Ecoware. Moderating the session and taking the conversation forward is Mr. Shiv Siddhant Kaul, who's the Managing Director of Nicco Engineering Services. And a very warm welcome to both of you and all the audience here with us today. Ms. Singhal, it's a pleasure to have you, and many thanks for agreeing to do this session for AIMA. You are the founder and CEO of one of India's green enterprises, and you have made a big contribution to the plastic replacement movement in the country, a very important movement, I must say. Your startup, Ecoware, is a leader among the providers of natural, eco-friendly, and affordable alternatives to single-use plastic items. You also chair Women Network in the Northern region, and you are involved with industry bodies in promoting clean air and women's empowerment. You are one of the World Economic Forum's young global leaders, and you have been awarded with the Nari Shakti Puraskar by the Government of India. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, and a very, very warm welcome to you. Mr. Kaul, it's always a pleasure to have you on AIMA platforms, and many thanks for agreeing to moderate the session. You are not only an outstanding business leader, but also a conscientious CEO who cares about both the planet and profit. You think deeply about sustainability issues, and you have undertaken many initiatives to promote clean and green business practices. Thank you for joining us and helping us with another one of AIMA's sessions and programs. Ladies and gentlemen, in this session, we will focus on a critical matter that concerns all residents of this planet where life is possible. Humans have altered the planet to make their life comfortable and created economies that must be continuously fed with ever more production and consumption. In the process, we have created materials that are indestructible and that pile up everywhere once they are used and just simply disposed. Moreover, to get those things, we must keep stabbing the earth and keep polluting its surface on which we live. However, fortunately, people are now waking up to the fact that if they keep choking the environment will eventually choke them. The truth that the planet will carry on with or without us, and it is us that we need to save from our own profligacy. In the recent years, a new breed of entrepreneurs and business leaders has emerged that is working on ways to enjoy ever more consumption without consuming up the environment. In today's session, we have one such entrepreneur who has turned the anxiety of environmental pollution and climate change into a profitable venture by substituting the most ubiquitous symbol of the planet's pollution, the single-use plastic. In fact, plastic has become the most despised material in the world, despite being the most used today. Today, more than 80% of all packaging laws pertain to the use of plastics. And we are privileged to have Ms. Mazumdar Singhal with us today to tell us how biodegradable and reusable materials are critical for our nirvana from the environmental pollution, and how all of us can save the world by paying attention to each product that we use, both in our business and our day-to-day lives. So with these words, it is my pleasure to invite Mr. Kaul to kindly take over from here and conduct the session.
Thank you so much, Smita, and everyone at AIMA. It's a real pleasure to be here, actually. I'm looking forward to this conversation with Rhea and making this interactive. So all of you in the audience, a very warm welcome, and I look forward to having your inputs to make this a session that we all can remember and learn from. Many of you would know about AIMA and the AIMA Women's Council. This Womenspeak platform is where we engage in conversation with India's most accomplished women leaders and achievers. And Rhea, you're certainly extremely accomplished, and you kind of tick every box that we really have in AIMA. So
Thank you.
It's wonderful. It's great that you've agreed to do this and share your insights with our members and also a lot of students who are joining us. So you have pioneered a company, founded a company which is extremely interesting, and it's something that really impacts us all. What you've done is you've taken a problem that was waiting to be solved as to, the preponderance of plastic, especially single-use plastics that are pervasive in our daily consumption patterns, that is consumed almost without paying a second thought. And you've highlighted a way in which everyone can participate in being responsible by choosing, a material that's sustainable, that is actually part of circular economy. And this alternative packaging that your company produces is hopefully going to be something that's going to save us from drowning in plastic. What I think it was really interesting for me is that if we combine this with the problem of crop waste, and if we look at what's happening in terms of secondary usage or misusage of crop waste vis-a-vis burning of fields and stubble burning, it's clear that disposal of crop waste in an economy where we have so many mouths to feed and so much agricultural production is also critical. So I'm wondering if as we scale up the idea that you've had and the products that you're developing, if there is a way that we can actually help to reduce pollution by monetizing and giving farmers an incentive to really not burn their fields. So, buzzwords, for us in most other companies, circular economy, ESG impact, carbon negative, big bold letters on the ESG annual report. But you have been living it. And in fact, these words form the DNA and essence of what you've created. It's not something that's bolted on. It's something that you live and breathe with every waking moment as a corporate entity. We have seen pictures everywhere, from landfills, we are drowning in plastic, the poor marine ecosystems, having plastic. There's this whole issue of microplastics that are leaching into every bit of our food chains and of the, the food chains of marine and aquatic animal plants. And this, is left unchecked. Who knows what's going to be the impact of this, not just on our planet, but on our own health. We have, as a country, banned some kinds of plastics, but many kinds of plastics in many ways are indispensable. We can't do without it. All of us have got a beverage from a cafe with a paper straw, and in 1 or 5 minutes, depending on how humid it is, the paper straw is pointless. So then we can't have an ecosystem where we are replacing convenience and plastics by just reviving legacy materials, paying lip service, and using either paper, metal, or glass, which are the 3 most common replacements for plastics. So how do we develop a calculus of the impact of our consumption? Because clearly these legacy materials need to be reimagined, need to be redeveloped, and we need to find some way of reckoning not just the environmental impact, but the entire life cycle cost. So when we talk about paper, are we really paying attention to the trees that are being lost? Mm-hmm. Are we paying attention to the energy intensity of the process that produces paper? And these are things that are not in the forefront of consumers' minds, and perhaps there should be. But also more fundamentally, as AIMA, as a management association, what we're also interested in addition to learning more about, your work and your company, is how does a system get institutionalized? How do we develop a management framework where we can see business opportunities, where ESG is not a cost, but an opportunity, and it's recognized as something, if you don't do something about today, it's going to come bite you tomorrow and really cause you a big problem in how sustainable your business is from a point of view of actually lasting into the next 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years. So this worldview in terms of management philosophy is essential. How do we incorporate ESG? How do we incorporate DEI? You're a woman entrepreneur. In starting your business, you would have faced not just business problems, but perhaps structural issues that you've had to overcome. So what are the learnings that we can have from that? What words of inspiration can you give us? How have you brought together new technologies, crafted an enterprise, and in doing so, stay one step of the game? It's a new market. It's not easy. I don't know how you've done it, but I look forward to hearing more about this, and I'm sure all of us do. Rhea, may I request you to kindly address us now?
Thank you so much. So let me start by telling you a little bit about myself prior to becoming an entrepreneur. I'm actually a pharmacologist. I used to work for Pfizer in the UK for about 5 years. I'm pretty sure everyone post-COVID now knows Pfizer. And I think for me, where I am in my journey, when I reflect back on what really motivates me, I think it's creating impact. Personally, for me, my mom has had breast cancer twice, for the first time when I was 19 years old. And it was at that point in my life that we really started being exposed to the science that linked disease and plastics, right? So you don't microwave your food in plastic. There are lifestyle changes that you have to make. You don't leave your water bottle in a hot car outside at temperature. Like those are things we were made to start thinking about. And then I went on to study pharmacology. When I worked at Pfizer, I worked in breast cancer and colon cancer specifically. So that sort of just deepened my passion, my knowledge. And I think my impact journey certainly started in the health space. And I think that's, when I moved to India, very honestly, I can tell, I say this out on a public platform now, is that no one gave me a job because I didn't have an MBA. And my father-in-law, who is a serial entrepreneur, inspired me to go down this journey. And I was 27 years old. I had no idea what it meant to live in India, to even work in India, or to start a business here, basically. So you can imagine the challenges ahead of me. And I think that, I did. So I have to say, I did go to some GMAT classes at Jamboree and try that. And I thought, no, this is really not what's going to work for me. And, when I started exploring entrepreneurship, I genuinely believed that entrepreneurs answer most of the problems that we face today, I believe this in my core, because I think that when the rest of the world looks at a certain situation, they might see challenges, they might see failures. An entrepreneur can look at the exact same thing and look at solutions and opportunities. And because they create solutions to problems that they care about, they create impact, right? That's just how it's weaving together. And when I moved to India, again, for me, it started with the health impact, because I was really shocked to see how much plastic we were, using to eat our food out of. And we kept talking about healthy food, organic food, but we used the dirtiest, plastic packaging, and it just didn't go hand in hand, and it didn't make any sense. I mean, like you quite rightly pointed out, I mean, plastic is so infused into our day-to-day lives, right? I mean, think about the first plastic thing you touched since you woke up this morning, and how many plastic things you've touched so far. And it's only 4:45 this evening. The first straw that we've ever used is going to outlive us and our generations to come. And I just thought, let's try and create something different. I wanted to create a solution that was safe for humanity to consume their food out of, and safe for the environment, right? The second thing I wanted was to be really clear, is that we created purpose in everything that we did. There had to be impact. And the last thing that was really important to me was authenticity. So we stood away from all the greenwash that already exists out there. And, what we really, I had experienced using such products when I lived abroad. And when I moved here, I thought this would be a great solution. And so I founded Ecoware in 2009. And what we do is we take agri-waste such as wheat, rice, sugarcane, and through a thermoforming process, we create packaging that's naturally biodegradable. It's naturally compostable. So it bypasses the need for any formal waste segregation and management that we still don't have, right, in our country. So once it comes in contact with soil, it will break down in soil in 90 days. Every claim that we have made on our product is certified, and we're very vocal and public about it. So it's and transparent about it, which is really important to us. We started working in the F&B space because we felt like it was low-hanging fruit. And we created a lot of dine-in packaging. So like what you would typically see in a food court, plates, bowls, cups, etc. And as the food and beverage market evolved and cloud kitchens came in and there was a lot more focus on takeaways and deliveries, our range sort of evolved into sort of takeaway packaging. In 2016, our team had the opportunity to innovate with the Indian Railways, the largest meal provider in the country. Typically we're all aware when you sit on a train, you get the 3 different aluminum casseroles, and we created a meal tray that was bespoke to them. That helped replace the aluminum, and we basically said this is what you could use instead. Our typical clientele include the travel food sector. So like I touched upon the Indian Railways, we work with, we did an eco flight with Etihad Airlines in Abu Dhabi about 2 years ago now. We work with large scale office canteens, so the likes of JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Bain. We have their QSR restaurants, so quick service restaurants like Subway, Cinnabon, Haldiram's. Where else do we work? So basically anywhere where you feed a lot of people in masses, right? Cinema chains, etc. And you have a lot of footfall of people, and you don't have a washing up facility. We also, what we found, we also basically have a D2C aspect, a vertical for us as well. So we retail online and offline. So the likes of DMart, Amazon in India, in the UAE, we're present on platforms such as Noon and Gibson's. So that kind of gives you sort of a different sort of customer segments for us. I think in what we saw post-COVID is that products like Ecoware became even more pertinent because suddenly there was a lot of panic, and disposable equated to hygiene. And we just didn't want people using more plastic when there were better alternatives available. So we found that a lot of single owner businesses were suddenly getting in touch. A lot of hospitals were getting in touch. A lot of people at home who just couldn't wash up, etc., needed to use disposables were reaching out to us. And, we've basically, and we also found that few things as a business have been good for us post-COVID is that one, the world has wanted to de-risk from China. And we've had a lot of inbound inquiries to become global manufacturers for this product. And also we've seen a lot of plastic bans coming through the country, across the world, and a lot of supply chains now are having, a lot of industries are wanting their supply chain to go more sustainable. So those are sort of, and that's kind of encouraged us to keep innovating. So now as for us, as the F&B sector grows, we're also innovating with different industries such as e-commerce, medical, FMCG, sustainable fashion, and that's something that we are looking now to commercialize and create different revenue streams for the business. We're immensely proud of the impact that we've created. So we've created threefold impact over 10 years. From an environmental perspective, we've displaced over 1 billion pieces of single-use plastic. Now, I know in the scheme of things that might not be a lot, but I'm not contributing to the problem, and that's something that we're really proud of. We've developed manufacturing practices to make sure that we don't, we're non-polluting and that we're zero waste. 100% of our revenue is derived from a circular economy model. And we've been recognized for that within India and globally. From a social perspective, we create an industry that never existed before. We've created employment, direct, indirect. 30% of our team are now women, and that's been a challenge for us because our factory is out in Greater Noida. So you can imagine when we started, we were 100% male team, except for me. And, it took a lot of perseverance, I suppose, and resilience to change that culture in the company and to make sure that we got more women on board. And what's even better to see for me today is that these women are, they've come in the packaging, like they come in certain departments, but they're now they've upskilled, they moved up, they're now working machines, they're on the factory floor. It's great to see their growth. And from a health perspective, we've just got fewer people exposed to plastic, and that's something that we're really proud of. Obviously, all the good has come with its fair share of challenges. I mean, I was 27 years old when I started this business. I had to convince generational traders in the wholesale markets of Delhi NCR, such as Chandni Chowk and Sadar Bazaar, to sell a product that they had no idea about, that they had never seen, and convince them that this was the future and their livelihoods would improve if they, ditched the plastic and sold Ecoware instead. The lack of regulation hasn't really helped us, which is why we've taken it upon ourselves, like I said, to build industry standards, to certify our claims, our brand. And obviously that's increased our brand strength and consumer confidence in us, right? Lack of understanding. None of my stakeholders even knew what compostable, biodegradable really meant. I mean, we started this company in 2009, long before any Clean India campaigns, and our focus has really been to create awareness, because I strongly believe that when someone makes an educated choice, that's a lifelong choice. When you're aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it, you will always do it, versus a plastic ban that's being forced down you. Learning to, run a team of 120 people, manage a factory, learn what manufacturing is like. I think it's fair to say that being a founder is a daily challenge, and, I've really strived to make Ecoware the best it can be. And there are days that risks pay off, and there are some days that the risks don't pay off. And these are the days that we learn, we improve, and we strive for better. And ultimately, good decisions come from experience. And you gain experience when you reflect on your bad decisions. So the important thing in my journey personally is to keep learning. I've learned that if you don't ask, you won't get. So you must use your voice. I think the biggest injustice or failure that you can do to yourself is not trying, and you have to be thick-skinned, because your biggest setback is also your biggest comeback. And bottom line, I think, when we look back on sort of 10 years as our senior leadership, as a founder, we've built something that we're really proud of, that impacts planet and humanity. And that's really what drives us to keep going and doing more. As you kindly mentioned in my introduction, in 2019, I had the honor of receiving the Nari Shakti Puraskar. And I think if anyone ever had to ask me about that afternoon, I think it was a complete blur, because you just couldn't believe what was going on. And I had this, feeling that I would just trip on the red carpet, or I would do something that I was not supposed to do. And but for me, I think what really hit home was after the ceremony, we were taken aside and we were told that this is not for what you have done, but for what you can do. And that's really what fueled me. And that's what I've taken away from the whole thing. So I think that when you're looking, we talk about, you mentioned, Mr. Kaul, that we keep going back to the typical paper, metal, glass sort of scenario, right? I really believe in innovation. I believe in the need for innovation. And so when you start thinking about what you want to do next, or a product that you want to develop, whether you're working for somebody or on your own, I would always encourage you to create a new category. When you look at, you make a product, you don't just make a product, you make a whole new category, you dominate that space, and you create value, most importantly, over time, right? And when you reflect, you see that the best companies in the world, they create. I mean, you look at Uber, they created a solution to a problem we didn't even think we had. Typically, we would just stand on the road, use our hands and flag down a taxi or an auto or a cab or whatever it is. Whoever thought we needed an app, right? And look at what they've created. They've given us new ways of living, thinking, doing business, and solving a problem we honestly didn't even think we had. And I strongly believe that purpose and profit can go hand in hand. I know that there are a lot of people that don't believe. I know that when we talk about ESG, the need for ESG, the need for DE&I, I strongly believe that climate change isn't going to spare anybody. Right? We're seeing extreme weather patterns, whether it's floods, whether it's drought, whether it's extreme heat. it will affect your output. If it affects your manufacturing, it affects your productivity, and you've got to recognize that it's climate change. And also, as a brand, we have to recognize that our consumers are changing. You might have presence today, but let's think about the consumer in the next 5 years or 10 years. They're our children. They're the Greta Thunbergs of the world, you know? They're the kids who come home and say that I can't light a cracker over the valley because it causes air pollution. They're very aware. They're very well connected. They're very knowledgeable. They're very purpose-driven. These are your consumers. So is your brand ready to evolve, to sell, and to resonate with these new generation of consumers? And I think that what we've also got to realize, I mean, I realized as an entrepreneur, is that when I worked at Pfizer, it was fantastic because if you did a great job, you had 2,000 people give you a tap on the back and go, well done. If things weren't going well, you also had resources and you were part of a large organization, right? You had teams, you had people, you had everyone around you to help you navigate. But as an entrepreneur, you really just end up navigating the unknown quite a lot. And the journey can be lonely. It can be incredibly hard. But I think what's good is that if you have the humility to listen, right? Listen to your stakeholders, whether it's your markets, whether it's your customer, and be agile, even if you have to adapt your business again and again. And I think that's really one of the things that COVID has taught us is agility. You've got to have the confidence to rebuild your purpose and your vision. Ignore the skeptics and have the impatience to make your good idea a success. I have to say my team has been absolutely amazing. When I was working at Pfizer, I recognized what motivated me. When I looked at my bosses and my directors, I started understanding what good leadership looked like. And so when I came to Ecoware and I founded this organization, I was very clear about the kind of leadership and the kind of values that I wanted in my company and in the brand. And today, I have to say that also from my MBA experience, I don't necessarily hire people based on their academic qualifications, but it's really based on the values that they bring and how they can contribute and really whether we're aligned. And I communicate my values through my actions to all my stakeholders. And I really believe that it's this alignment that's allowed Ecoware to remain steadfast, to create impact, and to be the successful enterprise that it is. We is always greater than I. So make sure that your team are aligned and they've bought into your vision and your purpose. So I can say that from being, a wife, a mother, to being an entrepreneur is a journey of a lifetime that I've traversed with courage, fortitude, resilience, and there isn't any other way. Starting with Pfizer in London, right after university, and then moving to India, starting my life in a country I'd never lived in was not easy. But nothing in life that leads to success ever is. And Ecoware, I see Ecoware as a chance to belong to India, to give back as a citizen, to create a solution to a homegrown problem. And as a woman in business, I learned on the job, I learned to navigate the unknown, whether it was manufacturing, labor, sales, operations. I kept an open mind and I just kept going. And I think I've learned a few truths. I think being a woman in a business means business for other women too. After receiving the Nari Shakti Puraskar, I had the opportunity to do a lot of work around women empowerment, women in entrepreneurship. And I've honestly found it extremely motivating. And I know that empowering yourself means empowering women and their families as well. When I look at our women on the workforce, I mean, the impact that we create is just absolutely immense. I've learned that the success of your venture is not yours alone. It belongs to your team too. Obstacles and challenges, have to be faced with one weapon only, which is courage. You've got to be a role model for others, because and I've seen this, no matter how old you are, you're being watched, whether it's your children, whether it's the next generation, whether it's the generation above you. If you're doing something right, people are watching you, and it all pays off in the end. So I think that success truly lies in the empowerment through vocation, through skill, through teaching. If we look at the world today, it is better than it's ever been before. But is that really good enough? I consider sustainability intergenerational well-being, right? Where we protect, where we meet our needs without compromising the needs of future generations. And I really think that we've got a lot of a mess to clean up. And I think we've really got to start seeing sustainability as an opportunity. Like I said, no matter who we are, whether we're a business owner, whether part of a community, whether you're a student, whatever it is, we all have a part to play. That's me in a nutshell.
Thank you. That's extremely provoking, and I think there's so many questions that emerge. But let's circle back to, in a way, I guess a business process question. Let's talk about circular economy. Let's talk about I guess, how long did it take you to develop a circular supply chain, and how do you scale up? Because it being local in a way, in terms of your procurement, there's always going to be a challenge, depending on the scale that's available. And have you had to be nimble while doing this scale up process? And can you share some kind of experiences of how that all worked out, or how it didn't work out and you had to pivot?
Sure. So let me take the circular economy part to start with. I mean, we've always said that we wanted to be circular in our process. So we wanted to use waste. We knew that the end of life of the product, it would go back into soil, convert in 90 days. It's not going to outlive you. So we were confident about raw material. We were confident about our product. In terms of just manufacturing, we were very clear that any water, if there was any output of water, it would be cleaned and reused again. If there was any raw material that didn't pass QC, we would put it back into the system and use it as recycled raw material. I think but it took us some time, and let me explain to you a distinct reason why. Is because when we commissioned our factory in Greater Noida, we didn't have access to pipeline gas, right? So we had to use coal. We had to use, and so at that point we weren't circular. We were polluting. It didn't help the situation, but it was kind of out of our control. But as the minute pipeline gas kind of came into our area, we made that heavy in financial investment, because we said that this goes against our brand values, and it's the final sort of box for us to tick. And but that was something, like I said, was out of our control. So there are factors that you can control. And, as a business, you decide that, these are things I do and I won't do. And then there are external factors that sometimes you have no control over, but the minute you do, again, you've made it a point to pivot and align with your goals. So it took us a little bit of time to become completely circular. In terms of manufacturing, in terms of being zero waste, etc., completely. But that was sort of always in our vision. In terms of scale, look, I don't think scale is an issue at the moment at all. In terms of raw material, India is a biomass-rich nation. We've only scratched the surface of demand in this country. It's not even, there's plenty of scope to scale still, let's put it that way. And we've not had, in terms of raw materials, not been an issue. And like, scale is space, it's more machinery, it's access to manpower. That's
and demand, which already exists. And like I said, post-COVID, what we've seen is there's even more opportunity to scale because the world wants to de-risk from China. And we're getting a lot of inquiries from the West, from people who have typically bought from China.
So when you talk about circular economy, does that mean in a way the food waste that you're using, is that all in a way locally sourced from northern UP, western UP, or is it does it come from far away and then you transport it?
No, so our
long
factory
distance?
is on, the largest sugar belt in India, right? We're in UP. UP are, they have the largest production of sugar. So, and our parent company has been, my father-in-law's been in the sugar industry and is an expert
Okay.
on bagasse. He's been there for about over 35 years. So that's where we procure from locally. But like I said, even our output today does not scratch the surface of demand. So what we consume as raw material is really not that much at the moment in terms of the availability.
The other kind of famous sugar waste product that I've been exposed to is, of course, novel materials for shoes, as in this company Allbirds, and I think there are a couple of Indian variants of that.
Okay.
That use sugar cane cellulose residue to actually reimagine sneaker midsoles and cushioning instead of EVA or petrochemicals. But what the interesting thing about Allbirds, and they reached, I think, a $1 billion valuation in just about 3 years as a sneaker company. They actually said that we are going to make our IP of how to develop this open to anyone who wants to copy it, because we think we have other things, and this cushioning material can be used by anyone, and let them go ahead and innovate with it. So how critical is IP, and is this something that you could actually make open source, given that there is so much scalability or potential that it's impossible for you to tackle on your own?
So look, I think that let me start by saying that when you look at the plastic products, right, available out there in the market, there are different types of plastics. When you look at specifically tableware, you have good quality, certified quality, the higher quality. You look at, it's a very fragmented market in terms of products. And it's so, even with this, I think what we've done differently is that we've created a brand over commoditized, what is a typically commoditized packaging market, right? A brand that stands for something, the brand that has its certification, that has examples of innovation with large scale customers. It really depends what you're after. So you could want to play the commoditized market and sure, it's not a big deal, or you could really want to create scalable change, and that's when your entire business strategy is very different, right? So it depends on like what you, as a business, what your vision is, I think. But there are more and more people coming into this, and that's not. It's not. I think if you're someone who's doing this authentically, I think that it's not a bad thing. Because there isn't enough, there's a lot of plastic that needs to be replaced. Let's put it that way.
Okay. So we're going to pivot in our questions too, and we have a question from Dr. Anupama Sharma. And this goes to being a woman entrepreneur. So her question is there a special advantage that a woman has in being an entrepreneur? Or is it comparatively difficult to be an entrepreneur and be a woman?
Honestly, I think the best advantage, the way I see it, is the example that you set for others. Like the fact that I have 2 kids who are 10 and 12, and they watch me every single day, right? I want them to know that they can do, one's a boy, one's a girl, and it's like, you can do anything you want to do. No one defines that. It's the role model that I am. It's the ability. The advantage is that I can be on a platform like this today and share my story with other women. and just show them that it's always possible. And you're not, we all have challenges, but I think that the biggest thing that we could do for one another is actually create opportunities for one another, right? And that's the most important thing. And so I would think that that's the biggest advantage, is that you can share your journey, you can share your story, and you can encourage other women. You can create opportunity for other women. Difficult? Sure. What isn't difficult? Like, what comes easy, right? But I don't really, it's not right to say that it isn't difficult. I don't necessarily like to play the gender card. Yes, we do have challenges, but I think if you've got strong mentors, you've got strong role models, I think you can navigate that. And what's lovely to see now, or at least for me in the last 5-6 years, is that I'm hearing more. I'm getting to interact with a lot more women, be it in the professional space, be it in the entrepreneurship space. And that's really motivating for me. So, it encourages you, because then you realize that everything's always still possible.
Okay. Let's take a question now from Dr. Labh Singh, who was an advisor to the DOT in the government of India. And let's see, I'm not sure how easy this is. And maybe you can say yes or no. Can you give 3 reasons why it is easier for India to lead the world in environmental sustainability?
There's something about the size of our population, right? That is a challenge and an advantage. And I mean, when we've looked at, just in our experience of taking Ecoware to different markets, to creating awareness, to creating education, to creating a market, it's been harder. India surprisingly has been easier. The hunger for a better solution. I mean, sure, when we started, there were small niche pockets, and we've kind of grown this now across the country. But even that initial bite existed here. There was cynicism, of course, there were challenges. The other thing, Mr. Kaul, is that I realized that we've always been a very frugal society. I remember my grandparents using plastic boxes endlessly, like using, plastic bags, boxes, whatever it is, reusing it. We had conscious consumerism is a part of our value system, right? We've seen obviously a rise in disposable income. We've seen a rise in a lot of accessibility to things. And sure, we've kind of, digressed a little bit. But the fact that we've always been a frugal society gives me a lot of hope that we can lead the world in sustainability, because I think that's something that we've done without maybe knowing it. And I think that when you go down to like tier 3, tier 4 cities, I think that's still happening very much so. So I think those are 2 out of the 3 reasons for sure. And I think that the other thing that excites me is the education at the grassroots level. So when you walk into schools, you look at colleges, no matter how old these kids are, they are the future. And there is a lot of focus on sustainability, on conscious consumerism, on the environment, on best practices. And so that gives me hope as well. So those are at least my 3 reasons.
So let's stay with education a little bit. And Dr. Seema Ganghas also has a question related to support with education institutions. But I guess more generally, how do you see educational institutions gearing up to really train people to think sustainability, both from a technology standpoint, but also equally important from, just an intellectual curiosity and an intellectual kind of a rigor of argument. So, one of the things that, Indian education institutions have a reputation for is for not being nimble, for, kind of encouraging rote memorization and being slow to take up new topics of instruction. So if you feel that, do you feel that we are in a way dropping the ball in this area at the education institution level? What do you propose? How do you suggest we can try and come out of it? Or if you feel that we're doing a great job, maybe you can share some examples of something that surprised you.
So I think that so my exposure, I suppose, in all fairness to educational institutions would be not just the school that my children go to, but maybe the schools and colleges that I've had the opportunity to speak at, right? I've been invited to come and speak at. And as whether it's an entrepreneurship cell, and what's interesting is that when you hear these students create business ideas, they're very innovative. Sustainability is at the core of that, right? They're like, this is what we want to do, but how do we make it? How do we not create waste? How do we make it zero plastic in the supply chain? So they are thinking about these things. And of course that, we've got to help as much as the thought is there. It's when they get access and they speak to entrepreneurs like us that are innovating, that are doing things that, like, I guess, different businesses, to help them enhance that knowledge. So deep, like, I think it's important for us maybe to bring in sustainability as an individual sort of module and a part of whatever it is that you're studying, whether it is a biochemistry, whether it is architecture, whatever it is, but sustainability becomes as core as math, English, Hindi is, right? So as a subject into the education system. And I think that when you see at a younger level, we're seeing schools do a lot of work around education and awareness, and and also best practices in school, whether it's minimizing waste, whether it's e-waste collection drives, etc. So there's a lot of people are becoming more they're trying to get kids to become more conscious citizens ultimately, and take that home and spread this knowledge to people at home as well and in their communities, and hopefully you see that change sort of spread through an RWA as well. So I think they are, are we doing it quick enough? Are we doing it in every language in India? Are we doing it, to reach 1.8 billion people? I think that's the challenge. How do we penetrate basically the country with this education? It can't just be a tier 1 drive. So that, for me, I see that as a challenge.
So, we've talked a lot about challenges and, you've overcome a lot of them. In terms of your own kind of, corporate growth objectives or, business growth objectives, where do you see the challenges in the next, 1 to 3 year time frame? And, what do you think, we can do from maybe either a policy framework or from a structural framework to make things easier?
I think from a policy, when we look at the government, one of the things that we're constantly trying to lobby is our exposure to GST, right? I know there are certain products that are eco-friendly, etc., that are probably fall into a less of a GST bracket, or sometimes even have 0%. So that's something that we are tackling, and we want to make the product more affordable, more accessible. So that would certainly help us. The other thing is that, to really sort of, we had a plastic ban that came in on the 1st of July last year, right? And I don't really feel that that's been extremely successful, because we're still seeing a lot of plastic out there. So can we up our education? Around the 1st of July, you heard a lot around, educational slogans. You heard a lot of awareness around this ban, and I feel like it's just been forgotten at the moment. So for us to kind of revive that, or to keep it consistent in our messaging, to say that it still exists, it's still important, we need to adhere to it, that would be important for us to scale as a business. Like I said, we are growing in the F&B space. We're also looking to innovate with different industries, and that's, so I think that's for us, our challenge is I suppose the innovation part, to see how much more, what can we pilot and how much more of this can we now take into commercial production, basically.
So I didn't hear a challenge or constraint being access to capital or investment. How has your journey been in terms of capital structure, and the tough part of
Relentless. No,
you make it sound easy. That's not part of the equation. I'm sure it wasn't.
No, I think in 2016, after innovating with the railways, is when we really started exploring sort of the space of an investor. And unfortunately, we tried that for about 6 months and got nowhere with it. My husband, who's my co-founder, he comes from the finance industry, and he was, extremely convinced that this would be a good time to do it. But I kind of got to a point where I thought, this isn't really working out. And so we went and we got a line of debt from a bank instead. And I was really happy about that. And then through COVID, we've received 2 financial grants, one from the Expo 2020 Innovation Program in Dubai. And the second one was from Unreasonable in partnership with Barclays. They were supporting businesses that were helping find solutions to COVID. In about 2019, we did have a fund that had approached us with regards to funding, but again, it didn't quite work out. So we're bootstrapped, to answer your question really simply. We've got a line of debt, we've had 2 grants. And I think for me to get an investor on board, I would want someone that it wasn't just about cutting me a check. It's about how can you really help me scale my vision? And I haven't found that person yet.
But that's interesting to hear. So I mean, normally, a lot of us feel that debt is kind of the collar, but it does sharpen the senses and keep you disciplined. So maybe there's a purpose to debt. So the other thing that you've talked about being a wife, a mother, as well as an entrepreneur. So how do you achieve work-life balance? Tell us a little bit about that journey.
I was just complaining about how my mind is a constant to-do list, but no, I think it's taken me a fair amount of discipline, to be honest. It has, I carve out sort of a half an hour, 40 minutes in the day that is just for myself, whether I'm going for a walk, whether I'm exercising, whatever it is, or even just taking a drive. And I will not access my phone. I will not, pick up unnecessary calls. It just is about me. And I think as women, we're not very good at doing that. Sometimes we feel quite guilty about taking time out for ourselves. And I realized that that's something that's really important. And it's really helped me. And like I said, the other thing that motivates me is the fact that my kids are watching. I get a chance to talk about it as well, and encourage other women to say that you can do as much as you want to do, and there is no one to tell you what the limits of that are. Only you decide. So it can get overwhelming sometimes. It can get quite exhausting, but I think it's up to us to set those boundaries, to define what they are, to make sure that we've prioritized ourselves. And then the system works.
So swinging back to product and marketing, India is, globally reputed to be amongst the toughest markets to do business in. Just from, price is everything everyone cares about. This is an L1 culture we live in. And, no one has any margin, and, you got to do all sorts of funny things to stay in business and all of that, especially when you deal with, vendors, right, whether it's rediwalas in Chandni Chowk, or, these are guys who are already operating on thin margins. So how do you get them involved? Firstly, does your product have a price disadvantage versus single-use plastic?
I mean,
would
it did.
ima-
Sorry. I
yeah,
thought-
go ahead.
No,
Yeah.
I was saying that it did when we had started Ecoware. The price differential was 3x. But with a lot of time spent on creating education and awareness, people really understood the value. And initially our markets were niche markets, but now with economies of scale, we've driven that differential down to about 10 to 12%. I mean, after all, we convinced the Indian Railways as well. So, and what we're seeing in terms of conversation and the landscape shift over the last 10 years is that people are really just asking for, price is not so much of a conversation anymore. It's about, can you make this? How quickly can you make it? Can we co-brand? What can you do to get it to us? So those are more of the conversations. Price is not driving, it's not driving the conversation anymore.
So, so that's great. So from what you're saying, and it may not be what I'm hearing, but what I'm hearing is that the Indian market is willing to pay a 10 to 12% premium for sustainability and environment friendliness.
See, I think, Mr. Kaul, you've got to realize that a lot of the F&B brands, like I said to you at the start, are focusing on, it's a brand experience, it's a brand promise, right? You want the highest quality ingredient or the highest quality product, whatever it is that you're using in your supply chain to help you deliver that promise. And for your brand ultimately to stand out. You're not standing at a chai wala, getting chai in a thin plastic cup. You're going to walk into a chai house or a chai point or a Bagh Bakri, or it's an experience and a brand promise ultimately that they are delivering.
Thankfully, I live in Kolkata where you still get the Bagh chai. So we're top of the heap in terms of sustainability. And I promise to give you tea from Arjun Tea Stall.
Done.
Whenever you're here next. But
sorry. That's what I was saying. I was just saying that it is the value of association ultimately in terms of what you're trying to deliver. So that's why we stand out: the quality, the value of association, our product, and ultimately helping the brand deliver their promise.
And do you find that you are being able to get brand equity as well?
It was hard at the start. It was because people didn't really find it a priority to talk about sustainability, which is something that I found really strange, because you made that intentional choice to use sustainable products and you were doing good, but you didn't feel that it helped to talk about it. But now we're seeing a lot more conversations happen.
Right. Well, Rhea, this has been fabulous, but I think we are running out of time. Smita, how are we doing? Do we have, time for one more?
We have a couple of minutes.
We have a couple of minutes. So let's take one last audience question, and this is from Abhay Saxena. Does India, by that I guess mean the government, provide support for sustainable development in ESG?
That's a tricky question. Personally, I would say no. I think we're having a lot of conversations about it. I think it really needs to filter down to the businesses that are making the difference, which we have not seen, whether it's been financial, rescue packages through COVID or whatever it is. We've not benefited from any of that. I can tell you at least about our journeys that we've not built our business on any sort of special tax benefits or, green levy businesses or anything like that. I think it's fair to say that we've been treated like just regular business. So I am not aware. And when I've spoken to other women, like other entrepreneurs in the green space, I think they have similar experiences as well.
All right. So I guess that's the last word. Then we need to do more. And I guess part of it is getting the regulation in place, which I think, at least for larger companies, there's a requirement for reporting on various characteristics, not just for yourself, but for your supply chain as well. So hopefully when we have another conversation like this, the case will be that we've evolved, and the citizens are doing their part, and the government is also doing their part.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Fingers crossed.
So that does take us to 5:30. Smita, I'm not keeping our lovely audience, longer than they signed up for. And yeah, I'm sure you've got a million things to juggle on your work-life balance plate today. So thank you all very much. You've been a wonderful audience, extremely patient and understanding. Everyone stayed on mute, which is incredible for a Zoom conversation. So thank you all.
Yeah, just to give you an idea of the number of people who tuned in for your wonderful session today, Ms. Singhal. We had 170, close to 170, plus on the platform, plus 100 students joining us from Vivekananda Institute of Management Studies, all the way from Coimbatore.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so there were 270 people listening to you today on this platform. And on social media, we had about 380 live views on all four platforms, which was LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. So that gives us a grand total of 650 people who tuned in to listen to your wonderful talk on the wonderful work that you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Smita. It was lovely to be here. It was great to interact with you, Mr. Kaul, and I hope that we get to do this again sometime soon.
Yes, come to Calcutta. There's a
I will.
Chai Kulhar waiting for you.
I'm half Bengali, and I think I owe myself a chirp. So yeah.
All right. We'll make that happen.
Okay. Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Thank you, too, Mr.
Thank you
Kaul,
very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kaul, for doing this for us. It was a very wonderfully moderated, and you took the conversation to different angles.
I enjoy it. Thank you for having me, because I enjoyed this a lot. So
always a friend of AIMA, and to all the participants.
Rhea is smiling very kindly. I hope she enjoyed it too.
No, I did. Absolutely.
It was a very great, very candid and a very informative session. It's opened a lot of eyes and gave us a lot of insights. So a last thank you to all the participants for joining us today, and to our speakers, and wishing you all a wonderful evening ahead.
Thank you all very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.